worshipping was Kurman in China. So, and even at the age of 7, he memorized the entire Bhagavad Gita, all these slokas, and he was just incredibly intelligent child. So it was really indicative of his future that he would be very that he would be a very big personality of great influence and great conviction in devotional practice. So later on, when he was growing up, in his early years, he was also just he used to edit actually Bhaktivinoda Thakur's work. So I mean, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is like his books and literature. It's like it's exalted, and here his son is actually assisting him. So that prayer that Bhaktivinoda Thakur offered, that heartfelt prayer of the sister, which Jagannatha fulfilled, he gave him the son, Bhaktisiddhanta. Later, of course, he goes to college and all of that, and very exemplary in studies, and he's good with languages and astronomy and all kinds of things. So very, very scholarly, very intellectual, very intelligent person. But then he also, because he didn't want to get involved in household life, he just wanted to be committed to devotional practice, then he just sort of left that aside. And then on the instruction and the guidance of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who was in many ways also the spiritual master, he then approached Gaura Das Babaji for formal shelter. So Gaura Das Babaji, as we know, he was apparently externally an illiterate person, and then here you have this extraordinary scholar who's just very class aristocratic, very magnificent in these physical features of everything, approaching somebody who was seemingly an illiterate person. So Gaura Das Babaji was like, let me test his sincerity, as all spiritual masters do. So with that, when Bhaktisiddhanta approached him, he said, no. Bhaktisiddhanta was like, why? Then he said, no, I don't have any mercy to give. This mercy is Krishna's mercy, or Chaitanya's mercy. So I asked him, and then you come back tomorrow, and then I'll tell you what he said. So Bhaktisiddhanta said, okay, he goes, right? Then he comes back the next day, and then he asked him, so did you ask? What did he say? Oh, I forgot. I got tomorrow. So he kept on doing this, Eventually Bhaktisiddhanta was just like, he approached Gaura Das Babaji and was like, if I do not have the shelter of your lotus feet, if I do not have your blessings in my life, if you are absent in my life, if I don't have your guidance, then this life is not worth living. Then rather I'll just give this life, because it will have no value. So with that, Gaura Das Babaji said, okay, no, he's sincere. So then he accepts him as his disciple. So from there, Bhaktisiddhanta later, of course, with the disappearance of Gaura Das Babaji, he still continued. And Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, I think it was just the very next year that he also left this world. He had actually taken sons after Gaura Das Babaji. But we see in the character of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati that he had an incredible sense of determination, an incredible sense of steadiness, of extreme devotion, of depth, of purity, of vitality, of force, of vigor. Because nobody could approach Bhaktisiddhanta. He was somebody that people would be afraid of. The Mayavadis were just like, oh my God, it's Bhaktisiddhanta, we're not going to just forget it. Because he would just defeat all of these arguments. And at that time, it's also described that there were a lot of deviations in the practice of Vaishnava culture also. It's also during the time of Lord Chaitanya, Prabhupada also gives a description of Ananda society. Prabhupada Sanatana, of course, appeared to Sri Prabhupada, but he also was really firm in his conviction because it was fueled by devotion to his spiritual master. And when Prabhupada was, establishing Vaishnavism throughout the entire world in its pure sense, he said, it's described, he says that he never felt separation from his spirituality. He always felt that he was one of them. So it's a very profound point actually, because last year when during Prabhupada's disciplines day, many of Srila Prabhupada's disciples actually gave, they basically share offerings to Srila Prabhupada, and many of them had actually not read Prabhupada. They received the letter or the phone call or, but some of them never met Prabhupada, or they just, got their name in the mail or something of the sort. But the thing that they all described, well, most of them, was that they maintained their relationship and their connection with their spiritual master through devotional service. They said the thing that has kept me worthy of Prabhupada and deeper in my relationship to deeper levels was devotional service. So it's quite incredible because when we look at the acharyas, Bhaktisiddhanta, Bhaktisiddhanta, Srila Prabhupada, they have such incredible vitality, such incredible enthusiasm that it gives them such a momentum. And if one sort of tries to understand where is this momentum actually coming from, then it's coming from a deep sense of gratitude. It's coming from a deep sense of recognition of the gifts that the spiritual master is actually offering. Because it's not an ordinary thing. All of these sacrifices, all of this literature, all of these things that the spiritual master is providing, yes, it's the practices of devotion service, but at the same time, it is the very things that is meant to protect us from the dangers of this world. It sounds dramatic, but it is actually there to protect us. It's there to give us a purpose. Because there's no worse experience in the world than not having a purpose and not having anything to love. Because we can say that, we would like to be loved, but if we artificially try to receive this, it doesn't quite work out. But when we extend ourselves in giving, in loving others, in a sincere sense, not a sentimental sort of way, but in an authentic way, that is when we actually experience these feelings of shelter. So we see this in the lives of the child. Great enthusiasm, great vigor, great inspiration, when we take them and we analyze them, you'll see that it's gratitude. At the very base of everything is gratitude. That they're appreciating all of the gifts that they've actually received. And from this appreciation, they gain the inspiration, they gain the momentum, it drives the activity. Because a sentimental approach is like, yes, I appreciate you, but more than just that is where we say, you become so inspired and so confident by the character of somebody that you feel inspired enough to actually do something for that person. So it's to be a servant, it starts with gratitude. It starts with recognizing all that we receive. So there's one really nice, there was one of the quotes by Bhaktisiddhanta that really, describes it to me. Another one was, do not give up devotional service even if there are innumerable dangers, countless insults and endless harassment. Do not become disheartened that most people in this world do not accept the message of unalloyed devotional service. Never give up your devotional service and hearing and chanting about Krishna, which is your everything. So that's very beautiful because it's giving us a heads up that devotional service is we thought when we joined, when we started, that it was just plain saying. It actually isn't, because there's so many challenges that we face externally, and more really it's internal challenges that we have to actually process. Externals, it may be there in some level, but healing is how the heart is processing everything. So, Radhanath Swami was saying that all we have to do is look at the Bhagavatam and we see these characters like Karavan, and we see Dhruva, and Kunti and Pandavas, and they endured great difficulties in their lives. They endured great challenges. But they still carried on. They remained undeterred in their focus, in their devotion, because they experienced that deep sense of gratitude, for Krishna. So this devotional service is something that it's a gift. It's actually a gift. So oftentimes, like when you have these sports and TVs, and you have a schedule, and there's like you slot people into a schedule, but it's not just slotting people into a schedule to do the services for activities. Actually, what it is devotional service is actually an opportunity to express your heartfelt appreciation and gratitude to the acharyas, because we're assisting them in service, and our heartfelt expression of devotion to Krishna. That's actually what devotional service is. So whether you're making garlands, whether you're doing pujari backup, whether you're doing cooking or singing or puja or arti, in one sense, on one level, it's all absolute. The service is the same. Because the principle of service is to glorify Krishna, it's to satisfy Krishna. That's essentially what it is. So, when we look at the acharyas, they had such great appetite for glorifying Krishna. They had such, and when we let me try this for my spiritual master, because I am so much indebted to him. Let me try. Then an amazing thing happens in one's life. Then you will see that you will recognize that yes, on my own, I would never be able to do this. This life that I'm living of regulatory principles, of chanting, of all of these things, it's against the grain of common society. And we're outnumbered. We're outnumbered. But how is it that we're able to do all of these things? How is it that we're able to learn so many different services when we join language? It's by that honesty that we will realize that actually it's by grace. It's by the prayer of the spiritual master. It's by that prayer that we are living our lives. It's by that prayer we are developing our skills. It's by that prayer that shower of mercy, generosity, that the spiritual master is here in the heart of us, and he is leading the way in devotional service. So it's not an ordinary thing. So don't Bhaktisiddhanta still don't give up yourselves. Sometimes externally, yes, there may be some health generated, there may be thirst, there may be something, and sometimes some adjustment. But if we're constantly on the default setting of, I just, somebody else can do this, or somebody, I'm not emotionally ready right now. Like, they talk about millennials, the new generation, like, it's like, I can't, I just need some time to about things and process it, and then I'll come back. Like that kind of mood. If you're going to be staying on that, that's like our default setting, always operating on that level, then we compromise our experience in emotional service. It's like, sometimes you ask people things like how they are, and they ask you, and like it's a straightforward question, but the answer is sometimes complex. And then sometimes they say, I just going from things, or sometimes it's like just surviving. But why be surviving when we keep flourishing? Why have an ordinary life when we can have an extraordinary life? And yes, perhaps maybe on an external level you just feel like a little vegetable going around. But in your heart there can be such an extraordinary experience of exchanges with the chariots, because they're present. They're still present with us. It is just a matter of us taking the time to actually invest in the relationship and see how actually all of this mercy is manifesting in our lives. So this devotional service, it's not a cheap thing. It's not something to just be put aside. Maybe initially we have some reservations. It comes as we go along. With time we see how devotees become so steady in these services. And one time a devotee told me, there's the monk preparations for the morning. We used to do like 17 meters of work, so that's like 5.5 hours, right? So it's quite something. So one devotee said to me, Satyarani, if you're going to do this service, and if you approach it they didn't use the word lethargic, but that's what it is. If you approach it with a lethargic attitude, like, oh my God, 5 hours, couldn't die. The sun's coming to the kitchen, and the kitchen is small, you don't have the windows with the doors coming in, everything is sweating all over the place, it's like a whole thing. And then it's just like, just sitting and you're just waiting. But she said to me, no, what you do is you go in with proper attitude, that this is for Krishna, and I'm going to do this for you. And when you actually improve meditations and you actually tell what they say to you, and from that, it does change the experience of the service, because then it is not just some 5 hours like that, it's just like, oh, maybe the time, how does it happen? Because the approach is different. So, the point is that practical devotional service is not an is no work as auspicious as serving the spiritual master. Of all worship, the worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the greatest. But the worship of the lotus feet of the spiritual master is even greater than the worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Unless this is firmly realized, we cannot understand what simply association means. We cannot understand what the shelter of the spiritual master means. We cannot understand that we are dependent and he is our maintainer. So that's actually really beautiful because it has so much of depth to me, but in one sense, the message that Bhaktisiddhanta is of course conveying is that the very essence of our life is our spiritual master. Because without him, what do we have? We can make some external material deduction and say, I got this job, I got a family, this house, this car, and all of these things we can make it, we can try to do an account of. But at the end of the day, all of these things, they have a meaning, and they don't give us full satisfaction. Maybe to some extent, it is there. But ultimately, our ultimate shelter is our spiritual master. But it's not a sentimental sort of thing. It's something that through our devotional practice, we will actually start to appreciate. Because when Prabhupada came to the West, what did he have? What did he have? He had the instruction and mercy of the spiritual master. And he created an incredible environment for generations to come. So this is potency. This is powerful. Because, throughout your life, there are some quotes we understand speaks about the way we do also. And the one we had previously read, he said that this is your everything. And this is ultimately everything. Eventually, Krishna will purify us to the point where we will come to the conclusion that yes, there may be so many shelters in this world, but ultimately the only shelter that we will ever have, that we will be able to turn to, that will always be available, that will be the most reliable, that will be the most sincere, would be the Holy Name, would be the child, would be Krishna. Because even if we are well-meaning, we may not know how to act for the benefit of someone when we are in an imperfect state. We don't know how to benefit people. But Krishna will always be there. The Acharyas will also always be there. So, in this way, at least, the Acharyas, their relationship with them was something that Kramakanda Maharaj has been emphasizing to many of his classes recently, to develop a relationship, to develop a recognition of the Acharyas, and let them, today is Pakistan's Parents' Day. Prabhupada, in his class on the spiritual master, he was explaining something much like Narayana means like sometimes, but it actually is always tricky. But Prabhupada was explaining that if it is now 8 o'clock and then it goes to 9 o'clock, it doesn't mean that it stops at 8 o'clock. Because it's kind of weird, right? But if you think about it, in some way the word of day is actually 8 o'clock. But don't apply it to Mangal Aarti, right? When you wake up, whatever time it is, no, this is Mangal Aarti time, somewhere else. But the point that Prabhupada was making was that, and he even said very openly, that yes, my spiritual master is externally not manifest, but somewhere in some universe he's doing the same thing that he was doing, which is glorifying Krishna. So it's very powerful. So these Acharyas, they're not ordinary personalities. They really are special, and they are still with us. So we can endeavor on days like this for great inspiration. They say actually that the disappearance and the appearance is the same. And there's a description of the rising and setting of the sun. It is always there. But at the same time, they say that the disappearance is in fact more glorious because the Acharya has start to recognize our position and let us be honest. Because from that honesty comes humility, and from that humility comes recognition of a greater person, a person greater than ourselves. And from that, we will be spurred by great enthusiasm to express it through emotional selves. And we see that this is the very life of Srila Prabhupada. This very instruction of Bhaktisiddhanta is embodied in the life and the sacrifice of Srila Prabhupada. So, these acharyas are very special. And we should take shelter, praise them, to manifest within our hearts. And that we develop and deepen our relationship with our Diksha and Shiksha Gurus as well. And that we become focused in devotional service, because this devotional service is actually the means by which we maintain our connection and deepen our relationship with our spiritual master. In time, it will start to manifest more and more. So there was a nice, just to conclude, there was a very nice quote by Bhaktisiddhanta, and he wrote it describing Srila Prabhupada. But it's also applicable to all the acharyas. And he says, these great souls were not mere luminaries like comets appearing in the firmament for a while and disappearing as soon as the mission was done. They are like so many suns shining along to give light and heat to the succeeding generations. So it's incredibly beautiful and it's so powerful, because we are directly experiencing this. We are experiencing how the generations before Srila Prabhupada have invested all of their mercy and all of their everything into Prabhupada, and he's carrying it out. And Srila Prabhupada is now transforming so many generations after him. It's so powerful. And by his potency, he has empowered his disciples and followers, and they are carrying on that same purity, that same inspiration. So it's a very beautiful and powerful quote. And we should feel this in our lives, that the acharyas are with us. And when we pray like that, then we will have not a sort of dry, lethargic devotional practice. It will be full of vitality, it will be full of reciprocation, it will be full of recognizing how much mercy is actually manifesting in our lives. So, that I think will end. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati and Thakuras. Anybody has any comments or would like to add? There will be a Pushpanjali at midday, so everybody's welcome to pop by that as well. So with that, happy praying. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati will keep.
Sure.